Welcome back to the Earth Keepers podcast. Here in season 4, I've been welcoming a series of guests to join me in some thought provoking discussions about where exactly humanity is headed and how we can collectively create the future we'd like to see. Over the past few weeks, we've explored ideas around creativity, storytelling, songwriting, and myth to begin to imagine new realities here on Earth. Now, through the next few episodes, you'll be meeting people who are creatively working with sound, crystals, light, animals, and sacred geometry to help us remember how our reality here on Earth actually works and how we can creatively bring some of this ancient future technology into our daily lives. It is my deep hope that these conversations will stir something within you, or perhaps light a spark in your imagination for what you might be able to bring forward from the depths of your imagination into this reality. But before we jump in, if you're feeling inspired to go deeper on this journey and want to support the work it takes to bring this podcast to life, I'd love to have you join me in the Earth Tenders Academy. The Earth Tenders Academy is my online course and community where you can learn more about the history and energy of the community that you live in, hold space for the healing of humanity and nature, remember more about your specific gifts and role with the earth, and see the true magic held in your everyday environment. I invite you to step into this portal with me and hundreds of other Earth Tenders from around the world. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more about the Earth Tenders Academy and join us in this beautiful community. And now, on with the show.
When the moon is risen, bright and round, and you are full within me, and my love for you lights up the night, I'll be singing for you.
In the depths of the chaos and change that happened in 2020, I had a very clear message come through about how flexible our physical reality really is, and the power of sound, vibration, and intention to create change. In fact, episode 19 of the podcast, called Creativity plus Consciousness equals Change, is where I shared all about this message. I'll link it in the show notes if you'd like to go back and listen. But to summarize, our bodies are sustained by a universal frequency here on Earth. It's like a code that we align to while we're here on this planet. We may not realize it, but the Earth is just a template or frequency that we've accepted as our own in order to incarnate here. Our physical bodies are linked through our Earth Star chakra beneath our feet into the energy grid of the Earth, and to our higher selves and all of the cosmos through our Soul Star chakra above our head. In order to come into a body, a small piece of all that we are is birthed as a vibration into our Soul Star chakra, which then emits a kind of projection, what we might call our light body, that resides within our physical body on the 3D plane. Now, as solid as our bodies may seem, they're actually composed primarily of water, which makes them quite fluid and easy to influence. If you want to change matter, you just have to work with consciousness and frequency. Our bodies will easily align with all kinds of different frequencies. The hard work is in overcoming our brain that tells us otherwise. Frequencies our reality can be altered by include sound, water, light, and crystals. And this doesn't just apply to our bodies, it applies to everything on the earth plane, even things we may not be able to see. The formula is creativity plus consciousness to equal change. If we want to see shifts and change in our daily reality, we need to use our creativity to focus our consciousness on the outcome. Now, we can add additional consciousnesses that could be our friends or our family or our allies in the unseen realms. The more beings that are focused on the outcome, the more the energy is amplified. Add in the animate energies that our physical and energetic bodies easily respond to, energies like sound, light, water, and sacred geometry, and boom, you have a supercharged ritual destined to create change in your physical reality. Now, in the case of today's guest, Rhiannon Belliveau, she incorporates many of these elements into her work with the living ceremonies she co creates with her clients to not just celebrate life's transitions, but also to honor sacred rites of passages. Through events like baby blessings, coming of age ceremonies, marriage and renewal ceremonies, she helps to create vibrational catalysts not just for individual people, but for their entire families. To create true change, we need sustained focus and energy that, of course, can be exponentially amplified by the addition of more beings holding that same focus and energy. Rhiannon is helping to bring back true community support where each individual can be loved, honored, and seen through the important transitions in their lives. She uses creativity and intention to create a lasting impact in the lives of everyone the ceremony touches. In addition to her ceremonial work, she is a singer and a harpist. And wait until you hear about the magical way the harp came into her life. She also hosts a sacred sanctuary for mentorship, ceremony, and energetic support for mothers that she calls Wild Crafted Mothering. And I can't wait for you to hear this conversation around mothering as a path of awakening, the importance of bringing back conscious ritual in our communities, and the magic of sound and music. And now, here is my conversation with Rhiannon Belliveau. Hey, well, yes, let's jump in. What would you like to share with us as we come into this space together to have this conversation today?
Well, let's just bring in a little sound to ground in, calling in the energies, all the divine ones, the blessed ones, calling in the plants and the animals, the waters and winds and stones.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You
Feel
have
it go
lots
straight to my
of
heart.
little beings all around you, all the green ones and the fairy folks and they're all wanted to say a little hello, it felt like.
Well, thank you. Yes, they are always happy to be invited in and join these discussions. So thank you for offering that to them and to all of us and to everyone listening as well. It was beautiful. Well, let's dive right in with our discussion. You know, a lot of your work is around this idea of wild crafted mothering. Tell us what that is and what that means to you.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to share about this because it's so dear to my heart. Um, of course, I'm borrowing that term wild crafted, right, from wild foraging and wild medicinal medicine making. And, as I'm sure you and most of your listeners know, wild crafting is this idea where we go to the place where these plants naturally grow in their natural ecosystem that has a tendency to be more nutrient dense, to be richer, to be energetically more potent, right? So that the food and the medicine that we harvest from these wild plants nourishes us in deeper ways, and in special, unique ways that cultivated foods may not do, or cultivated plants. And so this idea has inspired me a really long time. And I was reflecting one day about my feelings and my passions around really a revolution in family culture and this idea of motherhood as a path of awakening. And I was realizing that it's really quite similar to that idea of wild crafting plants, but in this way, it's more wild crafting a life, wild crafting your parenting, wild crafting your family, wild crafting yourself. And so to me, that means like three things especially. So the first of that is obviously that we're going back to the first mother for our teachings, for our wisdom, for our guidance. And that first mother, of course, is our Mother Earth. And so in the ways that we observe and feel her rhythms, her natural cycles, her enormous abundance, the way she showers her fruits, and in the way she is in relationship with all of the beings who are a part of her, the plants, the animals, the winds, the waters, and all of us, right? And so she has so much wisdom for us to learn from, to receive, to be blessed by. And in our Western culture, we have become very disconnected from the first mother. And I believe that that's part of our original wounding as parents, is that we don't have as much of a deep connection and relationship with her to bring forth that understanding of that kind of relationship, that way of living in harmony with all of life, in respect and reverence with all of life, into our lives, into our parenting, into our families. And so the first part for me with wildcrafted mothering is that we need to go back to that original source and to understand ourselves in the context of a natural ecosystem with our original mother. And that when we can do that through our own relationship with nature, through receiving the plants, listening to the plants, through connecting with the animals that live near us, with the nature spirits that are around us, we can begin to experience ourselves and understand ourselves in a whole new way. And the depth of richness and wisdom that comes from that, which of course is multifaceted, and so much that could be said about that, it brings so much to our lives as parents and families, and just as individuals, of course, right? But particularly for us in parenting and stewarding the next generation of humans on this planet. And I think it's especially needed at this time as we're birthing this new earth. We need to remember who we are. And so that's the other part about wildcrafted mothering. To me, that's about wild crafting ourselves, meaning going back to the wilds of who we really are, not the cultured version of us, not the indoctrinated version of us, not the part of us that was conditioned to all of the cultural expectations or our familial expectations, all of the ways that even our language and the structure of our society conditions us to believe of who we are, what reality is. There is a deeper reality of ourselves, and there is a remembrance of who we are that is awakening everywhere on this planet at this time. And these wilds within us are the place where we source the best of ourselves. Not only our deepest strength and resilience, but also our deepest wisdom. This is where we can root into our own inner authority, where we can stand in our sovereignty to make choices that are in alignment with a deeper truth, instead of just sourcing an external authority that has been handed to us by our society. And we have all in this society been indoctrinated and encultured into sourcing our wisdom, sourcing our direction, sourcing really everything that we value from outside ourselves. And we have forgotten how to connect with that deeper wisdom that lives within us, that place where we can actually begin to tap into divine essence, the part of us that lives in that ocean of consciousness that is connected with all life. That's where the true richness and wisdom really lives. And that doesn't mean that there isn't enormous wisdom and information out there that other people have cultivated, or that, scientific study has revealed for us to learn from. All these things are very valuable, but it's even more valuable that we don't give our power away to it. That when we receive information from outside, we have the capacity to run this through our system and to know whether it is aligned with life, whether it is aligned with that truth within us. So part of wildcrafted mothering is to become a mother, a father, a parent who sources from within, who knows how to connect with that deeper inner wisdom instead of always sourcing their answers from outside, whether they're parenting questions, life questions, to begin to really attune to the knowing that lives within each one of us. And it is there. It's alive within us and ready to be received by us as soon as we open and begin to trust what's there. So that's part of what we're wildcrafting in this idea of wildcrafted mothering. And the third part, the last part of it for me is the second part in that term, wildcrafting, which is about crafting is creating. Crafting is artwork. It is cultivating, it's tending, right? So this is about crafting a life. It's pointing to the fact that being a mother, being a father, being a parent, being a human is not a static process, right? It's something that we're living into. It's an evolving creation. It's an art form that expresses through our lives. It's not a degree that we get and have letters after our name and now we've arrived, right? It's a path of dedication to life, to the sacred, to love, to ourselves, to our families, to this earth. And I think that is really important, because in our society, along with this idea that we have to source everything from outside of ourselves. I just lost my train of thought.
No worries.
Let me just ground in. Oh, right. About crafting. So that it's sort of this idea that sort of a perfectionism, right? That there's some sort of pinnacle that we're supposed to get to, or some way that we can or should be doing it right. Like that's a defined objective. And I really see life and parenting as more of an art form, and as something that we're deeply engaging with from a place of devotion. And I think that is very important for us to keep in mind and it allows the journey to be so much more fun and interesting, right? It's ever evolving no matter how old you get or where there's no bad stage, right? It's not like your kids are better when they're 3 than when they're an infant because now they can walk and talk. It's not like they're better when they're 16 and they can drive a car, that, right? Like, we can appreciate that all these different stages of childhood are beautiful and have really like such sweet and special and profound things about them. And in the same way, our lives as humans and our lives as parents are an ever unfolding art form, and that we can be devoting and giving the best of ourselves all the way along that journey without any of it needing to be perfect, with us learning all the way. And I think that that can also be a bit of a balm to the tendency to judge ourselves so harshly, and to, sometimes I hear out there from people who are deeply devoted to their spiritual lives that they're kind of afraid of becoming parents because they're aware of the unresolved stuff and some of the shadow stuff that they haven't yet taken care of, and they have this idea that they've got to get all of that perfect, that they've got to be completely healed, totally resolved all that childhood trauma, totally understand their life mission, and have that on the rails and going forward before they can become parents, because what if they screw up their kids? And well, I think that that concern comes from a beautiful place and a deep understanding about how the wounds and conditioning of our past can get passed on to the next generation if we're unconscious about it. The other side of this is that we don't need to be perfect and have it all figured out, that this is a learning journey, and that indeed motherhood, fatherhood is a path of awakening. It is designed in itself to be the transformative catalyst that allows us to awaken, to heal, and transform in all the ways that we are being called to. And so it's not something that we have to become perfect first, but is something that by engaging with, we deepen our own journey of awakening and transformation.
Well, that is just so beautiful. And, it really makes me think partially about kind of this age that it seems like we're moving into, right? In that, I think that's why a lot of the structures are falling away or are being revealed or are on kind of rocky ground at the moment, because we're really being reminded that the messages and what we need is internal, right? That we have the information within us. But I also think some of these, and partially, the kids that are already here, but certainly the generations that are coming in now are here to stimulate that within us as well, and to find new ways of doing things. I had this moment kind of during the pandemic where I thought, oh, really watching what was happening with schools, especially, and kind of how a lot of those systems were breaking down and not functioning, right? For obvious reasons, right. on a logistical standpoint. But all of a sudden it was so clear to me, like it's the kids that are breaking the system, right? Like the system, kind of collectively isn't working in the same way for kids maybe that it did in past generations. And now we have this real opportunity to say, like, what do the children need? What experiences work for them? Or in the case of, as you're saying, like just specifically for your family, and really being able to be in that place and be tapped in and tuned into, no matter what else is happening outside or what structures or customs I'm being told I need to stay within. If I know something is right for me and my family, then I feel comfortable pursuing that. And I think that's really beautiful that you're kind of bringing that through and bringing that in, and assisting parents through that journey.
Yeah, and it takes an enormous amount of courage and strength to be able to do that, because we've all been trained from a very early age to follow the system and to do what the external authority is telling you to do. And as you start to tap into your inner knowing, when that inner authority starts to give you a different message than what the external authority is saying, especially when the external authority is in the form of people you love and respect deeply, right?
Right.
Like your own parents or, respected professionals in the field. It really takes a lot of strength to be able to discern what is really correct for you and to be able to act upon that. And so, but that being said, that's one of the reasons why I believe that parenting is such a powerful catalyst for spiritual transformation. Because before I had kids, it was really easy for me to avoid conflict. I mean, I was so trained in that. I was an expert at conflict avoidance. I mean, I never got angry. I never experienced any kind of fighting, any kind of disagreement. I mean, I was so good at this. To my detriment, of course.
Always
But
how it
I
turns out
had
to
no
be.
skin in the game to overcome that, right? To cultivate the strength within myself to stand up for what I believe in the face of some external authority that is, telling me something different, right? That was so scary to me because of early experiences that I had and probably some past life stuff too, right? That was so terrifying that I, one, was not conscious of it, and two, was not willing to go there until I had children. Because all of a sudden, I was willing to do things for them, scary things, because of my commitment and my devotion to them, because of my love for them, because of my deep feeling of what was right or wrong. For somehow or other, I came into this world with a very strong, grounded sense around parenting and a very strong intuitive knowing. And when I was having that experience in my body, but the books I was reading were telling me something opposite, I had to reject that authority and start turning to myself and being willing to meet the conflict that came, the questions from family when I decided to home birth my children, the flack that I received from people in my community, or even just, cultural narratives in general, images that you see of parenting and pregnancy and birthing in movies and books and all of these places, right? They tell a narrative that is very scary, very limiting, and very divergent from my experience of what was actually going on and what was actually going to support my children in their thriving and in their well-being. And so because of this, parenting became this journey that allowed me to strengthen in my capacity to anchor into my own sovereignty, to claim my own inner authority, to have the courage to stand up for what I knew to be right.
Yeah, and shifting gears just a bit, ceremony is a really big piece of what you do and what you share with the world. And I think as we're talking about some of these, um, issues that we're all working through in our culture today, why does ceremony figure in so big? And what do you think we have lost in this culture in losing our connection to ritual and ceremony?
Yeah, this is a really big topic and so important. Um, I actually think there's quite a number of things going on, and I think many people, not everyone, but many people in our society have not experienced true living ceremony. They have experienced pomp and circumstance. They have experienced, ritualized gestures and words that were created by someone else. Um, while these kinds of ceremonial events, it's not that they don't have value, but they are not transformative. And a true ceremony is transformative. It is energy medicine. It creates a change in your vibrational state. It's extremely powerful. And so, ceremony is a kind of medicine. Ceremony is a way that we open sacred space to deeply connect, not only with ourselves, but with all the divine ones that are surrounding us and who are here to support us and offer us their wisdom and their love. In particular, I believe that ceremony is especially important during those times of key transformation in our lives, what some people refer to as rites of passage. And it is at these natural times of great change in our lives, and sometimes these are biological changes, sometimes these are more social changes. Usually it's a combination of these that identifies a rite of passage. But at these times of rite of passage, there is treasure that is available. If we are able to walk through these rites of passage with deep consciousness, when we are able to engage with them and we are able to acknowledge and honor where we have been, reflect upon our intentions for how we choose to move forward, who we choose to be as we walk forward into this next stage of our lives, and we embody that and express that through ceremony that is created through our own deep reflection and shared with and witnessed by our community, a powerful and potent transformation and alignment with the new frequency, the new energy that we're choosing to step into can occur. What this does on an energetic level is makes it possible for us to release the old way of being. And not that that old way of being was bad, it's just that it's complete. And we are now stepping into the new, and we're able to embody that. And by being witnessed by our community, we are seen in this new way. We are honored for this, and we're also supported in this, right? Our community knows that is who we are, and by being seen, it calls us forward to continue to have the courage to step into this new frequency, this new energetic way of being. And so in this way, these rites of passage, these natural transformations cannot just be a turn in the road, but can be an opportunity for enormous growth, enormous self-awareness, and the ability to really truly move forward with intention into this next phase of our lives. And it's really actually quite amazing how powerful this is, like how it makes a difference in your life moving forward. I have seen it again and again. And so, let me just backtrack. Some of the rites of passage that I'm talking about are for a mother when she is pregnant and preparing for birth. Okay, and some people call this a mother honoring ceremony or a blessing way. Then birth itself is a powerful rite of passage, and really it itself is a ceremony, and then it's very important to have ceremonial support afterwards. Then baby blessings. And what I find with baby blessings is that this is not just the blessing of the child, but it's the blessing of the whole family. Because the family is now, whether it's, two adults now are becoming parents for the first time, or whether you have 10 kids and you're adding the 11th, you've got a new dynamic, a new family that's being created. And so it's extremely powerful to honor this and to honor who that family has been and who they're stepping into. and to bring great intentionality to how we want to parent as we move forward, to how we want to live and cultivate thriving in our family relationships. Then, of course, there's coming of age around the puberty time, right? Then there's also marriage or commitment. And then there are other rites of passage that I think are a little bit more ambiguous. They're not quite as defined, by strict terms. But I see many people moving into their elder years going through a rite of passage for sure. I also see many people, especially now in this age of awakening, who are going through spiritual awakenings, who are experiencing them sort of being reborn, that there can definitely be a rite of passage in this rebirth of self along our journey of life. And those are things that are more internal, that only we can name for ourselves. That might not be obvious to somebody outside of us, but we know it. And when we know it and recognize it and honor it, these times of transformation can be so much more powerful. And also, so here's the other thing about these rites of passage and these powerful times of transition in our lives. Transition means change. Change, which is not always comfortable, which is usually uncomfortable, even if it's awesome, even if it's beautiful, even if it's marrying our beloved, even if it's giving birth to a child that we've desired for years, right? Change can still be difficult, challenging, scary, uncomfortable, all the things. So when we walk through this transformative time with consciousness, when we meet this transformation in ceremony, then we are able to meet the transformation and reap the treasure and move with it, instead of being it's like we're able to surf the waves instead of being like pummeled by them, right? Because we're getting out ahead of it. We are intending who we are being. We are clarifying for ourselves. And so, when I work with couples or families in creating these ceremonies, it's not, we don't just like sit down for 30 minutes and go, oh yeah, it would be really nice to have some pretty drapes over here, and then let's exchange flowers. This is a journey. It's actually like a deep spiritual contemplation and process of self-reflection and communion with the family to tune into who they are becoming, who they've been, what they want to honor about that, what's important to them, what values they're bringing forward, what changes they're wanting to make, what qualities that they're wanting to embody and step into, what they intend as they move forward. And so this takes some time to reflect, to take on your morning walk, to take into your meditation, to take into your conversations with your beloved. And through that process, you gain more and more clarity, and you meet the places that are uncomfortable, instead of just dismissing and trying to get through the day with the stuff that's challenging. Instead, you have an opportunity to look at it and go, why am I feeling so alone? What's going on? What am I needing? What's missing? What belief am I operating with that is ready to be sent to the curb and up leveled with a new belief, right? It gives us this opportunity. I have seen so much healing happen in the process of creating these ceremonies, because the journey itself is transformative. And then the ceremony, the words that are spoken, any ritual actions that are done, are fraught with deep meaning. They're very intentional. There's nothing in it that's fluff. Everything has a purpose. It's like a poem where just taking one word out would change it completely, right? And because of this, when we walk the ceremony through, when we embody the ceremony, when we speak the words aloud and are witnessed by our community, we are transformed because we have done all the work leading up to it, and we are ready to say yes to this new frequency that we are stepping into. And so then when we walk out of that ceremony, we are different. We feel different. We feel empowered and clear in a way we did not feel before. Something has changed. It has supported us to embody who we intend to be, and really ultimately more of who we truly are, right? In our lives and in our families. But it's not this private thing that we do on a mountaintop or in our meditation cave. It's something that we're doing with our community, that we're sharing with people, that we are being seen. This is spirituality, like where the rubber meets the road, right out there in life. This is not like perfect oming in your, I don't know, in your room where nothing disturbs you, right? Like, this is real life. This is real spirituality, where we're truly embodying that and we're supporting ourselves in learning and growing on that journey. And so, one of your questions was, I think, to the effect of, what are we missing in our society by not having these types of what I call living ceremonies, because they're truly transformational ceremonies. And I sort of feel everything, but we are missing the opportunity to reap the treasure and the profound learning and true embodiment of the higher frequency that we intend to step into in this next stage of our lives. And there is so much richness there, and also so much support. What I see is that there's so much more understanding and ability to communicate, being on the same page with your spouse, with the rest of your family, because everybody's aligned with this vision. We know who we intend to be. Does that mean we're always that way every day? Of course not. But we know where we're going. what we're living into, who we intend to be, and we can see the other person in that way. Instead of getting kind of caught in the grumps of, the daily challenges and the things that are hard in this physical life. These rites of passage give us an opportunity to refresh and to see ourselves and the people we love the most from this higher perspective, and let them step into that instead of always seeing them in the past and maybe some thing that they used to do that really annoyed you. And maybe they're not doing it anymore, but maybe you're still always ready to be annoyed by that thing. Those types of patterns, and it sounds silly, and I'm using kind of a silly example, but these undermine our relationships in an enormous way. And so I believe these rites of passage are meant to help us in our own path of spiritual awakening, transformation, healing, and growth. That is what they are designed for. And we are missing them. So we have generations of adults that have never been witnessed, never been seen for who they are, never been supported to reflect and to step into who they actually want to be. Couples who have never truly reflected on how they want to be in relationship together and what their vision for their lives together is. It's a deprivation of the soils of our life. We talk about soil depletion with the food that we eat and what a problem this is. Well, there is a soil depletion in our relationships, in our families, in our culture. And we are weak because of it. We are scared because of it. We are just surviving. We are just getting through the day. I hear so many parents, so many mothers speaking about motherhood as a kind of ball and chain, as something that prevents their freedom, right? As a burden. They're just trying to get through the day, get the dinner on the table. They're just waiting for their time when their kids can dress themselves. They're just waiting for the time when the kids can drive themselves. They're just waiting for the time. And then they're gone. And you missed it. You missed it. Everything that was there. Your whole life. People going through their whole lives. Just missing themselves. Missing life. These rites of passage are a doorway to deeply engage with who we truly are, to deeply engage with life itself, with love. Some of the things that have touched me the most deeply in doing this ceremonial work with families is actually even more than the family or couple themselves that I'm working with. It's actually all the people who have come to be witnesses. And many times those people have no idea what they're in for and don't know why they're there and like, what the heck are we doing? Right? And they are so moved. They come up to me afterwards with tears streaming down their faces going, I have never heard two people speak so authentically about what matters to them. Or they tell me, I could feel the love between them so palpably, and it reminded me of the love that I feel from my husband that I haven't felt in ages. Right? People are reminded of who they are. They touch into the living essence of love and life that is opened in the doorway of ceremony.
Well, you speak of it so beautifully, and I have, so many things running through my head, along those themes as you've been sharing, but it really does. Not only are we missing it in our culture, and like you said, there are certain ceremonies, but maybe they're more the pomp and circumstance. And not only are the children missing out on some of these opportunities to have this transition, be witnessed, be seen, but I realize how many things happen in our culture where that's where all of the focus is, as if the parents aren't going through a transformation of their own, right? When a graduation happens and children move out, or they get married, or they have children and you're becoming a grandparent, right? All of these really big transitions for parents that are that they're not always witnessed in. And I just wonder, what thoughts do you have on some of the types of things that could be done, not necessarily to take the focus off of the child that is going through this important time, but also for the parents to recognize that this is a really big shift and change for them as well?
Yeah. Well, I think the beginning of it is just having that perspective that it is an enormous transformation for them, that that's very real, and that there's treasure for them in that. And that it's important that they take the opportunity to reflect on where they've been and what that's meant, to celebrate. We're so quick to just move on instead of celebrating the devotion and the care and the love and the joy and all that we've done and all that we've shared. These things are worth honoring and celebrating, right? So taking the time, even if it's just with yourself or with your spouse, to speak about these things, right? And then to acknowledge, the feelings that arise, to acknowledge the transformation that is occurring. And also, one of the things that I have found that's really interesting, but does make sense when you think about it, with these ceremonies that are ostensibly more focused upon the child, right? Like a baby blessing or a coming of age ceremony, right? That's more about the child. But like I was saying with the baby blessing and how it becomes not just about the baby, but about the whole family, these kinds of ceremonies, they include the parents. And so it's focused on the child, but there is an honoring and a recognition of the change for the parents. And typically these ceremonies for children are done in partnership with the parents, right? The parents are usually the ones that are initiating and looking for this, right? Well, of course, especially in the case of coming of age, we're very much including that young person in the process of creating the ceremony, because their self-reflections are very important. But it's also equally important that the parents get to share that. So one of the things in the coming of age ceremonies that I've done with my sons was that there was always an opportunity for the adults, to the important adults in the community that gathered for the ceremony, to give back to the child, to offer witnessing and to be seen, right? And opportunities to, and of course, so I'm going off in many directions here, but these ceremonies are always crafted to support the vision and the unique situation and needs of the family. So if the parents are finding this particular rite of passage for their child a huge rite of passage for them, then that becomes part of the ceremony. Or there's a secondary ceremony that's a part of this process, right? So that everyone gets supported. The child isn't separate completely from the parents, and the parents aren't, just as becoming pregnant is a catalyst for enormous transformation for the mother and the father, right? As our children grow and move through their processes of evolution, it stimulates our own transformation, because we have to up level to meet them there, right? We have to work through the stuff, the wounds that's left over from when we were that age, right? We have to meet that. We have to process through that. And so we're doing it together. Another piece about this question, which I think is very rich, about, honoring parents in their transformational process as their children grow, is that I think it's really important for parents to come together in a sacred way. And I think there's a growing awareness in spiritual communities of the need for people to gather together in sacred space, in prayer. And we have women's groups and we have men's groups. There's a recognition that it can be very important for, there are groups for healers, right? So people who have, different similar paths, right, might come together for a sacred circle, for a prayer group. And so I believe it's really important for parents to hold sacred space with each other, to witness each other. There's a way that a parent can understand the quality and the unique transformation that another parent is going through, that someone who hasn't had that unique experience of being a parent can understand, right? And so that's part of why I created the Mother's Council. And I received the guidance for that about a year ago. And the Mother's Council is a sacred circle just for mothers. And this is a place where we come together just as we are, not in our perfect airbrush Instagram images, right? We come together just as we are, whether it's been a hard day or a great day, when we're grieving, when we're excited, all the ways. and we come together in sacred space. We come together in song, in prayer, and we come together in counsel. And counsel, the mother's counsel, is where we speak from that place of our own inner knowing. So the mother's counsel is actually a place to practice learning how to connect with and receive that deep wisdom from within us, and to anchor into the courage to speak that inner authority and that inner knowing and be received by our community. And so it's a, of course, a very non-judgmental, open space where mothers just speak out of the silence what they know, and they are received in that. And as what I find is that as mothers are going through these, waves of their own transformation, right? Because as you have many children, you've got different children who are going through different transformations at the same time. It gets a little more complicated, right? So you have one who's transitioning out of the nest. You have one who's transitioning through their coming of age on your bookends, right? And these create waves of transformative shifts and awareness and challenges within us. And this is all what we can bring to the council to be seen and heard. There's enormous insight and wisdom that comes out of these times of transformation. And in council, this is a place where we can share this wisdom so that we can receive it ourselves even more deeply, but also so that our community can benefit by the wisdom that we're tapping into as we move through these cycles of transformation and transition in our lives, and as we bear witness to those cycles of transformation and transition in the lives of our children.
Yeah, and you mentioned song as being one of the important pieces of that gathering, and of course we got to hear just a small snippet of your beautiful voice at the beginning of this, but that's something that I said you bring into all of your ceremonies and rituals and that type of thing. And what piece do you think sound, frequency, music has in that transformation and change that happens in ceremony and through ceremony?
Yeah, well, sound is that first step down into form from pure frequency, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a bridge between our spiritual nature and our embodied human form. And sound is also one of those ways that we can begin to return to the wilds of who we truly are. In our culture, we are very restricted and conditioned in the kinds of sounds we're allowed to make. And there's an enormous amount of repression of our own expression and even our own sourcing. And so sacred sound has been for me just such an enormous teacher and blessing. The sound carries the frequencies of light and love and is a direct transmission that can be received instantly by our cells, by our energetic nature, and creates harmonious transformation instantly. It's so fast. And we're just seem to be designed to receive sound and to allow sound to harmonize us. And in the work that I teach with sound, I do an offering called Birth Song for pregnant moms, and the similar work in a program called Authentic Voice, which is for anyone who wants to learn to work with sound. But this is learning how to go back to our original sound, the sound that wells up from within us, the sound that emanates forth when we connect with our hearts, when we connect with nature around us, when we feel love, communion with another, when we feel that desire to offer love, and blessings. I think it's hilarious that my dog is snoring really loudly right now while we're talking about sound.
I was laughing. I'm like, he's adding his own frequency to the transmission here.
It's so funny. She just got really loud right now as we're talking about sound. She's like, let me tell you all about sound. I'm going to give you a transmission right now with my snoring.
I was laughing about that too.
Well,
Well
but
timed.
here's the thing. Here's the thing that she's making me think of. So maybe this is why she's doing this. Our sacred sound is not always what our culture deems as pretty, right? Sometimes it's like a snore, right? Sometimes it's guttural. Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it's sharp. Um, and the frequencies have a divine intelligence. And so as we learn to engage with our own sacred sound, we drop these conditionings about what is good and pretty and correct and perfect and enough and all this stuff, all this judgment about who we need to be in order to be loved, in order to be accepted, in order to belong, in order to be enough, blah, 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 blah. We have to let it all go. Cue the snore. And deeply receive from ourselves. And this way of working with sound is not something that I was trained in. I did not go to some sound healing school when I started doing this work. I mean, there were sound healers out there, but they were pretty few and far between. It was not big on the scene like it is now. And I'm so glad that, people are catching on to how powerful sound is. But this learning to work with sound in this way was something that occurred naturally in my healing practice. And initially, the funny story is that I tried to suppress it. So I was doing, etheric energy healing work, and I kept having these urges to make sound, and I kept trying to suppress it because I was already weird enough. Waving crystals around and stuff, And like, I thought I would lose on my clients, or like, I don't know, that I just couldn't be that weird. And but I couldn't suppress it. I mean, I literally could not keep it in. So then I started letting it out in like little sounds, like little quiet little things. And my guidance is just laughing hysterically at me being so ridiculous. And eventually I learned to let it out more, and what started out as like a little something at the end of the session eventually became the entire session, and my sessions became much shorter because sound works so fast and so powerfully. And so the biggest learning for me with this sound was trust, right? And the release of all of the conditioning that we talked about earlier. This sound is natural to us. It lives in us. We are a resonating chamber. We are designed to sing. And indeed, even without, vibrating our vocal cords, with the amazing science that they have now, they measure that, we are all, the vibrations that we emanate are singing. We all emanate a beautiful song, and we can participate in that and co-create with that and offer that as a blessing to the world through our own sound. And it's something that I believe kind of has been stolen from us and needs to be returned to the people. This is not something that professionals do. This is not something that high muckety mucks and special spiritual people do. This is something that humans do. We all do this. We are all creators of sacred sound. We all offer healing blessings with our sound. This is something we can bring to our families, to bring peace, to bring healing, to bring joy, to express ourselves, to help move density, difficult feelings. The sound is so powerful, and it connects us with heaven and earth. It's that bridge, like I said, between the higher frequencies and our embodied form. And this is what we're up to here. I do not believe that this time of awakening is about ascending off planet and getting away from being human. Because why did we incarnate here if we were doing that? That doesn't make any sense to me. I believe that it is the integration of those highest frequencies into embodied form with profound grace and thriving is what we are meant for. There is a new way of being as a human on this planet, and I do believe that remembering and reclaiming our sound is a very important part of that, and is also a very great teacher for that. And I really encourage everyone, go out in the woods where nobody's around, and or in your shower when nobody's listening, and just sound. Not sing, not make a melody, not sound pretty, and not perform, but rather just allow the sound to come forth and trust it. Let it go. Keep allowing it. See what's there. It will teach you. That is the movement of your own divine essence speaking to you. It's there for you all the time. Have this conversation with yourself. It's really beautiful. You are so much more beautiful than you realize. Okay, I might feel a little passionate about this.
I love it. I love it so much. And anybody who has, been on this journey with me for any amount of time knows I'm a big proponent of toning, just because it's, right, we get all in our heads about singing a song, or I don't know, or I can't sing, or whatever, but like toning is just so easy to tap into. And once you start doing it, it feels so good in your body. If you're outside in nature, you will notice the trees, will right away snap to attention. Do it again, right? They're just nature, the earth loves it, our bodies love it. And it was making me think while you were talking too about a recent retreat that I had hosted. And in one of our group ceremonies outside, almost everybody had received a message at some point to either tone or sing or play something or whatever, and no one did it, right? And then afterwards everybody was saying, well, I really felt like I should do this, but I didn't want to disturb everyone else's meditation, right? And so we had this conversation about any time in a group that has happened where we're on a journey together, it's kind of quiet, but somebody spontaneously starts singing or chanting or toning or playing or whatever. It's the magic that comes from that when people share afterwards. Either someone starts singing at the exact moment somebody else needed it to move energy, or at the exact right moment in their journey, or they didn't hear it at all. Like that has happened so many times where people are like, I was so worried I was disturbing people, I was so loud, and like half the group says, you were singing, I didn't even hear you. So it's just, it all works out perfectly however it's supposed to. And so I appreciate your encouragement to us all to not hold that inside and really let that energy move and let that frequency come into form. As you're saying, it's like floating in the ethers around us, and we're the ones who can bring it through and share it.
Right. I mean, it's such a huge activation of our throat chakra, right? It's so common that we receive that instinct to tone or to speak or to share our opinion or to say no. And then we don't, because we've been trained to be nice, to not disturb anybody, right? To not make waves, to avoid conflict, all the things. But when we're doing that, we're deeply repressing the wisdom that is coming through us. And it's not just about like elbowing in to get our opinion in the conversation. We're talking about opening the channel for the divine to speak through us. Right? I don't sit down and like contemplate on what tones and frequencies and what intervals would be really good, and the note of F sharp is really good to open the heart, and this person does seem like they've got some heart closing stuff, so let's tune into the frequency of F sharp. No, This is not an intellectual exercise at all. This is allowing that divine intelligence to move through us in a natural way. This is wild crafting. This is getting back to the wilds of who we are. Our sound is part of the wilderness that lives within us. It's part of our elemental nature. It's so important. It's so powerful. It has so much to offer to us and to others. When we hold that in, and here I am saying all of this because these have been some of my biggest challenges in life. So like this is why I work with sound, because I have had a really hard time speaking my truth in the past, right? And it's still a challenge for me. I still tend to be conflict avoidant, and it's still something that I am working with every day, right? But when we are allowing that sound to come through, it heals us, it opens us, it transforms us. It's so powerful.
It really is, and I thank you for sharing that message as well. And we haven't even mentioned that you are a beautiful harpist and have some beautiful music and transmissions as well. But I would love to hear, before we close, just a little bit about your creative process as you're touching on, and how some of these things come through, how you are in touch with the muse, however you see it from your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I would say that is ever evolving. And it's been different at different times. Currently, I feel like a lot of my inspiration comes through as I am, well, in two places, either in ceremony, or when I'm working with something that's challenging, right? When there's something coming up for me that's challenging and I'm working through the energies, I start working with sound, and then often a song will begin to come through. Or when I'm doing healing work with other people, so there's just the songs just channel through as we're working, and then sometimes those songs pieces of, because we often record sessions for them to listen back to later, and so then I sometimes go back to those pieces and take like the little song snippet and might evolve that process, and then other times with particularly with the harp, I'll just be kind of noodling around, right, and just playing, just like listening to the sounds and enjoying, and then I might hear a little melody line, a little rhythm, a little something that inspires me, and I start working with that, and and then words will start to flow, and so it's so different. I feel almost like every song is its own little divine being or something. There are songs that I have, there's one song on my album called The Lullaby, and I wrote that song singing to my sons one night, singing them to sleep. And I was playing harp, and I was actually trying to figure out how to play the song that a friend of mine wrote, and I couldn't figure out the chords, and I was just playing around, and all of a sudden I heard something, and then in that in that song, there's a line that talks about the moon is in the rainbow, and that refers to earlier in that evening, the moon had been out before the sun had completely set, and there was a rainbow, and the moon was like right in the center of the arc of the rainbow. It was the most mind-blowing thing. We just stood out there for half an hour just agog at the gorgeousness of it, and so that came to mind, and like the magicalness of that, and all the when I was singing to the boys, of course, then all the crickets were going, and I was hearing it was summer and all the outside sounds. And so it was like all the images of that just flowed into the music, and I just wrote the song right there, just that was that. And I went downstairs and I wrote it down, and then there was the song. And then other songs. I have a song that I didn't record that was written for a friend of mine when they were moving to Australia, and I was devastated that they were moving so far away. And for 6 months, I tried to write a song for them to express my, my deep love for them, and all the things. And I could not do it. As hard as I tried, it was like diligent, because they had a date that they were leaving, and I wanted this song done, and I wanted to be able to play it at their going away party. I had a plan. And then literally 2 nights before the going away party, I was just noodling around, and the song came through, and I wrote it in 2 hours. And so it's just so weird. I don't know if other artists have a normal codified process that they have a way of doing it, but for me, it's just kind of bizarre, and I never really know. And I kind of take every song like it's this manna from heaven and just this gift. And I can go months without writing any songs, and then all of a sudden a whole bunch of inspiration will flow in. And so I just kind of trust the process, and have to do a lot of surrendering about any of my mind expectations about what I'm supposed to produce or something like that, right? And just let it be a joy and kind of a magical journey.
I love it. And I think you're right. Probably most artists, creatives, whatever, would say, I can't control it. I don't know when it's going to happen. It just have to be in the right place at the right time, and there it is. So it's always good to hear, though, um, about people's creative processes and how those things come through, especially when it feels like such a gift, or a channeled message that has come through, as opposed to forcing yourself to sit down and create something specific in a certain window. So
Right. Well, um, when I received the harp, it was in a very unique way, and because of that, I I don't I don't take it for granted. Um, so I play the folk harp, for people who don't know, the Celtic harp, not the orchestral harp. And I began playing, I don't know, 13, 14 years ago, something like that. And before that, I had never actually, I didn't know there was a folk harp. I had only knew of the orchestral harp. And then at the yoga center where I worked as a healer, there was a workshop being offered by a woman who was doing, a spiritual workshop, and she was going to be incorporating music, and it sounded really cool. So I went, and she was a harpist. And so she was out in the hall, um, greeting everybody. And so I was filing in with everyone, and she had all her stuff, including her harp, set up, in the middle of the room, and everybody's filing in to find their seats. And as we walked in and approached the harp, I heard the harp play unstruck. And when I say hear, I mean the kind of sound that is like inside your body and makes all time stop. And it was like, woo, 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 and everything just went, and my heart just blew open. And then I opened my eyes. People were bumping into me because I had just stopped, in this like shock of this experience. And I had no idea what had just happened to me, but I knew that I was going to play the harp. And then in meditation, some weeks later, I was visited by a group of star beings. And they told me the story of the harp. And I'm going to tell it to you now just a little abridged version. And what they told me was that they had brought the harp to the planet many, 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 many thousands of years ago. And that they had seeded the harp in every culture around the world. And as we know, it is the root of all stringed instruments around the world. And they said that the harp is a portal for the higher dimensional frequencies of the stars of divine love. And that the harp has been dormant for all these years, waiting for humanity to awaken. And they say when a human that is awakening to a certain frequency plays the harp, the portal opens. Mm-hmm. And those frequencies of divine love from the star beings will pour through. And I think it's very interesting that there's been a resurgence of interest in the harp in the last 50 years. And many people are called to the harp. I meet a lot of people at events and workshops and concerts and things who come up to me, and I can see it. They've got it in their face, it's in their eyes, and they have this, could I just touch it? And I can tell. I'm like, sweetheart, you're a harpist. You're being called. You should just give in now because it'll be easier. Let me give you some contacts. And they come and they touch the harp, and their just whole being is lit up because they're meant to play. And so the harp is in partnership with us. And I believe that this is why the harp has been associated with religious music and healing in cultures all around the world. And so whether or not you believe this story is true, for me it has inspired a very deep respect and reverence for the harp and for what it means to pluck its strings anytime that I sit down to play. And that also I'm not going to force the harp to make music for me, but rather we'll open the doorway together and hear the song of stars that wants to come through.
What a beautiful story, and how remarkable, that it's not, even to pick up an instrument like that, not as a child, right? That, and to connect with it in that way is just so beautiful. And of course, like, it was this divine gift, right, to Earth and to humanity. And of course, cultures have been captivated by the harp for thousands and thousands of years. And I have to share a little personal story that popped, came to me while you were sharing that, because I just realized that it connects all the pieces of our conversation here. And that, so I grew up playing music and loving music. I played the flute for years and years and years, and was also in the 4-H program, which is, I grew up on a farm, and that was a big part of my life growing up, and I was very active and participating. And so you age out of the program at 19. So it's another year or two after high school if you continue on. And so my last year, I think it was like a really big statewide conference that I was participating in. I think the only harpist I ever knew growing up, right? Like, all the different music things I did, I don't know that I knew any other harpist. I knew one that who suggested that we play a piece together at this event on, the closing event of this conference. And so I was reminded while you were talking, not only that this was like a bit of ceremony, right, in that, like, the end of this transition of this childhood program and into my adulthood that included music in this way. But we also played the song "The Rose," which I had forgotten until just now, which has a lot of significance for me in my spiritual journey and path as well. And so I just wonder how much of that came through from the harp and from the other beings that were involved in that process as well, because it was a special event and opportunity to get to do. So thank you for reminding me of that.
That's beautiful.
Bringing that through. Well, obviously you have many beautiful offerings, some of which we've discussed, and as well as your music available, which I will include pieces of here throughout the podcast. But I also highly suggest you go listen as well. But where can people find you and connect with you out in the internet world?
Yeah. Well, I'd rather you come visit me in Connecticut because I really like being in person. Um, but the internet's pretty good too. So you
If
can
you're
find
not
me at,
nearby.
what's that?
If you're not nearby Connecticut.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's wildcraftedmothering.com. And then I'm on Instagram on Wildcrafted Mothering, and then Facebook just by my name, Rhiannon Belliveau. So, and yeah, there's lots of, resources, writings, reflections on the website. And you can also reach out for a connection call. And if you have questions or things that you want to find out more about, then I'd be happy to have a conversation. I'm really excited. I share on the website about this, but the Wildcrafted Mothering's offerings are, really focused around the mother and also the family and the rites of passage. But it's really a bigger mission about a revolution in family culture, and even more than that, just a revolution in culture, in who we choose to be and the remembrance of who we truly are together in this world, living in reverence with life. And so I'm really excited to be bringing that message forth and to be continuing that conversation with you and with other people who are exploring this and, asking these deep questions of how do we, shed that cultural conditioning that is, so repressive and attune to the truth of who we are. And this, I am on this journey too. I don't have it all figured out. Doing this work is part of how I engage, in the same way that I talked about how motherhood is a sacred path of awakening. And it's not that we're perfect ahead of time. It's that in and through the journey and the process of it, we are transformed. And so I'm just really excited to connect with others who want to explore this possibility.
Well, thank you so much for sharing so much of yourself here with us today. And thank you for being here.
Well, it's been such a pleasure and such an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you on your podcast. And I'm really delighted with the work and the leadership that you are bringing into our communities, and just so much blessings on your work and your life. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sending my deepest gratitude to Rhiannon for this beautiful discussion. And I hope it sparks something in you to bring ritual and ceremony into your life in a conscious way, to see what kind of change can ripple out into your reality. You heard just a snippet of Rhiannon's song, I'll Be Singing for You, at the beginning of the episode, but I'd like to leave you here at the end with the entire song. I think it will especially resonate with you if you're a mother, but it really speaks to the circle of life for us all. If you enjoyed this episode and you think these ideas are worth spreading, I hope you'll share it with others. In the meantime, thanks for listening, and thanks for being here on the earth at this moment in time. I'll see you back here next week.
When the moon is risen, bright and it's up the night, I'll be singing for you. When the sky grows pink in the early morn, and the house is still and quiet, and you are asleep upon my breast, oh, I'll be singing for you. When the sun is high in a summer sky and hot upon the sand, oh, and you're building castles and diving deep, oh, I'll be singing for you. And when clouds roll in and your sky turns gray and the rain comes pouring down, oh, and your eyes like rivers flood their banks, oh, I'll be singing for you. When winter comes in her cloak of white and the snowflakes are all dancing down, oh, we'll bank the fire and gather round, and then I'll be singing for you. When green buds blossom upon the trees and you have grown so tall now, and you climb taller still to the highest branch, oh, I'll be singing for you. Oh, oh, oh. When you're far away in some distant land and adventure is upon you, and you're all grown up, dreams coming true, oh, I'll be singing for you. And when when I am gone and passed away, and the grass is green upon me, and my body is given back to